honestly, Geoff, this is one of these situations where we've been talking about it for so long. It feels like there were so many opportunities along the way for Manchester United to finally cut ties with Erik Ten Hag. Why now?
Because it's got that bad, because they're 14th in the table, because it is shown no signs whatsoever of getting any better. So they really are, they've looked at each other and said, how bad can this get? And it can get worse. You know, they're closer to the bottom of the table right now than the top. That's how ridiculous the situation is. So look, it's a desperate situation. And also, this is not entirely of Erik Ten Hag's doing in purely himself. I think that's the first thing I would say about this. I personally feel a lot of this is on Ineos and the way they've handled it, or rather mishandled it. They had doubts about him. There was an overview taken. They reviewed his situation. It was led by Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sir Dave Brailsford. They decided to keep him in situ. They backed his signings. That hasn't worked. None of the signings have worked. The whole thing is a total mess and is not going to be fixed overnight as well. And now, Ruud van Nistelrooy, he joins. We've been here before with Manchester United. Solskjaer, he took over as interim manager. You've got Giggs, you've got Michael Carrick, you've got Ralph Rangnick, and here we go again with Ruud van Nistelrooy. And what will happen, sure as eggs are eggs, he might win a few games, and then there'll be a clamour for the interim manager, who wasn't brought in to be the manager, will get the job, and then it'll go pear-shaped, and then they sack him as well. It is, honestly, it's beyond parody, but it's predictable as well. Unless they have somebody right now who they have in mind and can come out and say categorically, Ruud van Nistelrooy will not be the next manager. He doesn't have the necessary experience. He's had a small amount of experience in the Dutch leagues. It's not enough for the Manchester United job. He is strictly the interim manager. But that pantomime will play out as well. Honestly, it's a total circus, and it's all of their own doing.
Geoff, you mentioned that he hasn't shown signs of improving this season. I don't know what signs he showed last season either. So this, to me, feels like it falls right on the lap of Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe as a complete failure, at least their first major mistake. Moving forward, what's going to happen next? There's obviously going to have to be a complete rebuild. Is Van Nistelrooy that guy, or do you think they wait until they find another manager?
Well, Alexis, you'd have to say, what reason? Let me flip it round. Let me ask you, what reason would you or any Manchester United fan have to trust Ineos in the process going forwards? Given since they arrived, their first major decision is keeping Erik Ten Hag and also backing the signings that he wanted. They approved all of those things. They've been disastrous. So on that basis, what makes you think that they would get this right? They
also sacked a quarter of the club's back office staff. They sacked Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yeah, look, that's slightly different. I think it's far more nuanced to say that they sacked him. He's an 83-year-old man and may not have wanted to carry out the amount of ambassadorial duties. In fact, I've had this conversation privately with people that they were potentially looking for and he wanted to commit to. So I think it's wrong to term that a sacking. They decided, and I think he was, relatively understanding of them wanting to discontinue that role. But I hear what you're saying. But the bottom line is, all that matters at football clubs is results on the pitch. The results have been dreadful. The performances have been equally awful. They're a team going backwards. They're a team of moments, at best, witnessed by the 2 trophies that you won. So, to be honest with you, I don't know where they're going to go. I don't know why they're going to go there. And I don't know what plan they have, if indeed they've got any plan whatsoever. I can't think of a single positive that Ineos have brought to Manchester United since their arrival. I genuinely can't.
So, Geoff, I think as a Manchester United fan, you have no other choice but to put your faith in Ineos' hands, because who else is going to make this type of decision, right? And I totally agree with you. I think you're spot on that from the very outset, it's like, to me, it's mind-blowing. Why wouldn't you want to start with a clean slate? You're coming to a club where not only the results have been abysmal.
I can answer that. Do you know the answer to that? It's because they're not the Glazers. That's why the Manchester United fans welcome them.
Right.
Because they're not the Glazers.
Fair.
The hated Glazers. So now the Glazers are out of the spotlight, if you like. They're still collecting vast amounts of money. They still own most of the club. Somebody else is having to deal with all the criticism and they're making even more of a hash of it than the Glazers did.
Why? So, again, going back to the Ineos decisions, why would you take any Glazer spillover into your regime, let's call it? I don't want to call it regime because, yes, the Glazers are still involved. But since you start controlling and making decisions at Manchester United, why would you want to get any remnants from the old people calling the shots? And now you start off on the left foot. So I really wonder how, because the forms have been poor since Alex Ferguson retired. Right? And it's if manager after manager and turnover after turnover has been poor for a decade. But that's an anomaly.
They won the Europa League.
But that's an anomaly. Look at Moyes, look at Van Gaal, but finishing second in the Premier League? They're 14th right now. They won one Europa League.
They won a European trophy.
But my point isn't that a one-off season where you win the Europa League and a one-off season when you win the second and when you finish second in the Premier League isn't at the Manchester United standard because they were winning Champions Leagues and
would Real Madrid be happy with the Europa League?
They were winning Premier Leagues. My point is that manager after manager, the results haven't come. So you can't keep on scapegoating the manager every single time, Geoff.
And Nico, and they've had money. And they've had money.
How self-aware is Ineos about the situation that it's maybe not the manager that's at fault, but it's the infrastructure of the club?
Correct.
No.
Correct. And they've got a stellar cast of Omar Barada, Dan Ashworth, Jason Wilcox, Sir Dave Brailsford. Fantastic, as they call it, the C-suite. But that is not translating to the pitch. So it is dysfunctional, it's broken, and they've been there long enough that they should have made some inroads. It should have been better. It's the signings. I always say in football about managers, you get sacked on the basis of two things: your results, first and foremost, and your signings. Because if the signings show promise or they're likely to come good, you've got a good chance of, okay, when that happens. Can you tell me anybody that they've signed that has been a good signing, you would regard as a good signing?
Well, I'd say Onana. It turns out to be a good signing. But nonetheless, I'm sick of the whole narrative of ownership and the sporting direction when it's Ten Hag who wanted his guys and they signed his guys. So you take that out of the equation. For me, you're watching him coach on the pitch. Indecisive, not getting the team sheet right, not getting the tactics right, not making the substitutions at the right time. These are all symptoms of a bad manager, somebody who's not ready to take the reins at Manchester United. So for me, that's all you need. It's the product on the pitch. Forget about the ownership, forget about the sporting director. Show me a coach who knows how to coach.
The ownership is hiring.
Yeah, but Charlie,
he's not the right guy.
Charlie, there's always dialogue. It's not a simple case, as you well know, you've been a player. It's not a simple case of coaches writing out a shopping list, handing it in and say, right, I want to buy those players, go and get them for me. They will sit and discuss with the sporting directors the merits of individual players, their strengths, their weaknesses, also the players they want to buy, the players they want to sell, the players they want to ease out of the club that they have now. Would they take a big offer? So it's a two-way thing. So although it is not as transactional as you're saying, if anything, the fact that they will have sat and worked with Erik Ten Hag, bought into everything he was saying, bought into the signings that he proposed, makes it even worse for them. It's even worse.
Yeah.
They are complicit in this, Charlie. The owners are complicit because they've wasted opportunity and they've wasted money because they've failed to identify that he's not good enough as a coach. And it's taken this to shake them into some sort of response. How many times have we spoken about this? I mean, honestly, I could understand your producers saving time and money just recording my section and rolling the same thing out week after week.
Go back to last year's Champions League campaign.
Yeah. Saying the same thing.
I'll never forget that Copenhagen game.
Why are you so angry?
Because we've been talking about this, Geoff, for a year.
Yeah.
For a year.
Ad nauseam.
We knew this. We knew Ten Hag was not the right guy for this job, and look how much time they've wasted. And they've wasted some
Charlie,
guys.
I'll be honest with you. Charlie, I'm disappointed in you, and you surprised me. I genuinely would have thought that you, as an Arsenal fan, wanted Erik Ten Hag to stay.
Geoff, I did. As a Liverpool fan, I did. So
I think that's too easy. Geoff, as you were speaking before on the right bar, we showed all of the signings that this team has made. How many of these players do you actually think will still be on this team in a year from now?
Well, that's the other thing. Whoever comes in, let's say they offer whoever. You can pick any name you like. And there's about 10. There's about 10 names in the frame right now. So any incoming coach is going to say, okay, because coaching these days is about survival. The first thing is, can they survive a Manchester United job right now, as opposed to, right, we're going to win things? Because a new coach is going to want what you can never get in football, which is time. And nobody's going to want to tarnish their reputation. So a coach is going to come and say, right, okay, with what they've got, with the players that they have there, can I get this team functioning? Can I get some sort of results out of them? Can I get them to finish top half or even eighth, something like that, which right now is lofty ambitions for Manchester United, which sounds absolutely crazy to say it, but you can't ignore the reality of their situation. No question, those players could be coached better. No question those players could perform better, but somebody's got to get in their hearts, into their minds, and get their bodies going. Then on top of that, that incoming coach will say to the new owners, right, come January though, if I'm going to take this job, we need this, 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 and this. And he will name however many players he feels he needs to turn things around. Now, a new coach might come in and say, well, I don't fancy Anthony. Doesn't do it for me. Casemiro, I think he's past it.
95 million for Anthony. I'm sorry. I cannot believe that. And 82 million for Rasmus Højlund. 78 million for an aging Casemiro.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Horrendous business.
It's 600 million plus. Absolutely. You'd say the majority of it has been absolutely wasted with very, very little sell-on value.
It is comical.
Yeah. It's incredible that they've gotten away with it. So they're in big trouble, and just because they've sacked Erik Ten Hag, that does not mean, blue skies are here again and happy days are us. Far from it. There's a lot of work to be done here, and the amount of work that they've got to do, they've made worse themselves by dithering in the summer and not being decisive. They spoke to half a dozen managers, or however many they spoke to, and they decided to stick with a guy that they had doubts about. Those doubts have now been proven. And that's come back to bite them.
How much pressure is on Dan Ashworth to get this next hire right?
Well, as you know, it is the old expression in big corporations, big trouble, deputy heads may roll, i.e. the big chiefs, they never cop it, do they? They don't cop the can when it happens. That will be fudged. Who's it down to? I bet you Manchester United won't name a specific person who's responsible for the hire of the next manager. It will be deemed a collective, and they'll say, quite rightly, they'll say that we are going to, as a group of executives, we're going to discuss it, and that's the way it should be. But so far, as a group of people, it's been, just as I say, it's been really, really poor. So Geoff, they've got to take a long, hard look at themselves as well.
Geoff, if you were to make this hire, who would be the leading candidate in your mind? Who do you think best suits Manchester United's current squad to at least get them higher up the table, maybe in a Europa Conference League place at the very least? Like, who do you think is best suited to take over?
I nearly gave a really glib answer there, Charlie. I nearly said, now, who do I dislike that much? No, I'm not going to say that. No, of course not. And again, we've got to be serious. Manchester United is a wonderful football club with fantastic tradition. It is arguably the biggest football club in the world. They can certainly lay claim to that. So this is a tremendous opportunity for somebody. It's a fantastic job for somebody. And also, if you want to improve a club, obviously the lower down it is, the higher you would go. Now, the hires, I saw the list of names that you had on there. Gareth Southgate, Sue's not for the first time, is absolutely spot on. He has been saying, in fact, I had this conversation with somebody this morning, he's been saying for a long time, he needs at least a year out of football, potentially ruling himself out. But ordinarily, Manchester United, I would have said not so long ago, Manchester United jobs don't come around that often, but they would appear that they do. Could this change his mind? He's exactly the sort of person that Sir Dave Brailsford and Sir Jim Ratcliffe would love to work with. I think they would love to work with him. Who can come in? Who would be a breath of fresh air? Tough.
Hey,
tough,
Geoff,
tough.
Mourinho recently said he wants to manage a team that isn't in European competition. Manchester United's in 14th right now, so that would be...
Yeah, no, I think that boat has sailed. I don't think they would welcome him back. Look, I know Thomas Frank has been mentioned, but it wouldn't fly with the Manchester United fans. He doesn't have the pedigree. But do you know what? He might be the type of man. He won't excite a lot of the Manchester United managers. But what's going to be really interesting is if the Manchester United executives sit there, as we are right now. Who do we need? Okay, here's for example. Let's go to the very right, the top, probably the Don, Carlo Ancelotti. Okay, I'm not for 1 second suggesting that they should go after Ancelotti, but if you're talking about a club which is going well and you're looking to further build on that, that's what the top coaches go for. Would a top coach right now look at Manchester United and think, right, I can go there, I can put my stamp on it, and I can rebuild this? Because this is a minimum of an 18-month rebuild, an absolute minimum.
Not a single manager, but not said, can I go there and rebuild? I don't think that's the question they're asking themselves. I think the question is, why would I even go there? You mentioned
because it's Manchester United.
But it's like,
that allure will never go away. I disagree that it's the biggest club in the world. I don't think that's arguable anymore. At the moment, Real Madrid's clear. But it's still one of the biggest clubs in the world.
Yeah, but why would I take my CV and go to Manchester United?
Because they're all egomaniacs. Glory.
It's the history of the club.
Yeah.
Two,
right, I get it.
Two, it's the salary that they're going to pay you.
Right?
Yeah. And
I agree.
And three, you stand
but
up the upside
to
achieve something at a club like Manchester.
You're a god if you get
There's a lot of potential.
Back to glory.
You guys shut me down when I pitched that same thing to Suze just now.
Because it was so
half an hour
It was the way you said it. It was the way you said it.
But
Suze, I think you should sign for
It's your tone.
Yeah.
okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry.
You did such a good job in it.
Don't
If it
hire
was
me.
Boca Juniors, you would have had some energy in there.
You can possibly tarnish a little bit your legacy if it goes sideways.
Oh no,
which
Nico,
it has for the last 7 managers.
no. This is. Listen, I'd argue against my own point. This is Manchester United.
Okay.
This is
I
Manchester.
agree with you guys.
They will not be short of high caliber, high quality candidates. It is still a hugely prestigious job,
People
a
will
hugely
pick up the
prestigious
phone.
job.
It is. Of course they will.
It's just weather.
And there
Graham
will
Potter's
be
not one of
there
those
will be
top
coaches.
managers, right?
There will be coaches at existing far more stable clubs who would swap that to be the manager of Manchester United. Let's get that right.
Yeah,
so
Eddie Howe, Thomas Frank, you could go down the list.
Yeah. There's some excellent coaches. So in some ways, it is a time to be excited. If I was a Manchester United fan, I would just be hugely concerned, based on the body of work so far of Ineos, of them getting the decision right. And the longer, and I would be even more dubious the longer that Ruud van Nistelrooy is in charge, because that's nothing against him. Let's say they don't have somebody in mind, which seems madness because they were talking about his position and interviewing other managers in the summer. If Ruud van Nistelrooy wins the next 6 games, understandably, he becomes a candidate.
Yeah,
and there's
absolutely.
public pressure. So honestly, you couldn't make it up.
There is so much to unpack here, and Geoff, I'm sure we will be continuing this conversation in the many weeks to come, but we really appreciate your insight here today. Thanks so much for taking the time.
My great pleasure. See you, folks.